Uh, my life. My life. I don't know. I don't know. Uh, how many problems I have in my life that are just the result of me being bored. I was just watching. I watched a few videos on YouTube of movie actors doing interviews and that sort of thing. I think I watched Timothy Chalamet and Maisie Williams, two separate interviews, and then Timothy Chalamet with Armie Hammer, uh, who were in a movie together. And I remember watching them in the interview, thinking that sounds like they were describing the process of not the process, but what the experiences they had making the movie. They were telling the story about how they uh, these are two very attractive men, Armie Hammer and Timothy Chalamet. And the movie is a love story that they were in, Call Me by Your Name, and they were telling the story about how the director of the movie, when they were just gotten into the, I don't know, it wasn't on set, but I guess wherever they're filming, is that what it's called, on set? I don't know. Uh, uh, but the director wanted to introduce them to each other, and so the director, the way they tell it is, the director said, "Go to scene. We'll do scene 71." So they're going through the script, and the script says, whatever the names of the characters are, make out with each other and roll around in the grass. And they were both kind of like, well, I guess this is what we're here for. So they started making out, and the director was like, "What are you doing? Like, make out like you really want to make out." And so they said that's what they did, and they just kept making out and kept making out, and basically we're waiting for the director to say stop. And after a while of making out, they look up, and the director had walked away and just left them there to make out. Which was his way of introducing these two actors to each other, which I thought was interesting. But also at the same time, I kind of felt like my life is very boring. What am I? What have I done with my life? Yeah, going to work at a retail store and then going home and getting drunk. I have a terrible headache. That's why I'm laying down. My head is just like, I don't know if I'm like, maybe need to go to the hospital. Uh, I bought this bottle of vodka yesterday. I almost finished the entire bottle, which is a fairly decent. I mean, this thing is as big as my head. So, and I realized that I have a big head. Mm. Uh, that's why my head hurts. It feels like, I don't know what, but I'm laying here with this headache, looking at my boobs in the mirror. Thinking, what am I doing with my life? What? you know, I do wonder, like, how much the trans thing is just the result of me being bored. You know, Like I wondered like if I were doing what these guys were doing, making movies, making out with other hot actors. Uh, I'm not. I don't mean to say that I'm a hot actor. That's not what I mean to say. But uh, I thought, would I be doing the trans thing? You know, if I were a Hollywood actor, it would make it more difficult. You know, being in the public eye, being somebody when you're a nobody who lives in a bus. You know, working at a retail store, it does make it a little bit easier to do the trans thing because what do you have to lose, right? Oh, talk about my life. Oh, what else is there to say? I need to brush my teeth. I know. I know I need to brush my teeth. You don't need to tell me. Who am I talking to? My head hurts. My neck hurts. My back feels okay. Which is the best angle? That one. Is that good composition? Can I be a movie director? Is this good? Am I am I showing off my movie production skills? I think making movies could be fun. I also watched the interview with Peter Jennings, and he said that he was talking about they were talking about being news broadcaster, whatever he's called, news anchor. Why are they called anchors? Why is it a news anchor? I don't know, but he said that he couldn't imagine doing any other job. And I thought I've never had a job like that. I've never had a job where I felt like I just can't imagine doing anything else. For me, it's the exact opposite. Every job I've ever had, I imagine doing something else. I've never had a job where I didn't think, God, is there something else I could be doing? I think maybe making movies, creating things, uh, maybe is the job for me, but why I don't do it? I started the Game of Thrones analysis project maybe 6 months ago. It was before Christmas, so this is March. Sorry, this is April. It's April 2nd, April 3rd. I'm not sure. I believe it's April 3rd. So I started the project at least before Christmas, maybe before Thanksgiving, but about 5 or 6 months. And I was going and I was going and I was going working on it, and then I got to a point where I just stalled. And it seemed like I was doing more research and things like that, and one of the things that happened was that I started thinking about like alcohol and cough syrup as a way to get me through kind of the trudginess of the is trudginess a word of I got to a point in the analysis where I felt kind of stuck. Uh, I was finding connections with different things. It seemed like every connection I found led me to another one. I don't know how much I want to reveal about my analysis, but I had this hunch uh, that I should look into alchemy in doing this analysis of Game of Thrones. Because my analysis is a religious, comparative religion, comparative mythology kind of study or analysis. So I'm comparing the story of Game of Thrones to myth, myths and or just uh, cosmologies from around the world, right? And so alchemy fits into that too, because alchemy has its own pictures of reality, that sort of thing, pictures of how the universe is, and that sort of thing, and that fit with Game of Thrones, right? Such as the seven heavens. Uh, but I kept finding connections once I started into that. So because I knew that I'll put this out there. I don't know if this is revealing too much, but Game of Thrones is based on the Wars of the Roses partly. This is according to George R. R. Martin, the author of the books, that he was heavily influenced by the Wars of the Roses, that which was a war between the Yorks and the Lancasters. So George Martin has said that those are his Starks and Lannisters, right? So I'm looking into alchemy, knowing that the Wars of the Roses is probably based on the Wars of the Roses, but then I see it looking up the Wars of the Roses that the Wars of the Roses ended with the marriage between Elizabeth of York and Henry Tudor, who fought for the Lancasters. So it's essentially the side he fought for the Lancasters. He wasn't a Lancaster himself, but it was a marriage between two opposing forces, which is one of the themes of alchemy, right? So in alchemy, you have the marriage of the Red King and the White Queen, which are supposed to represent Mercury and sulfur, I do believe. So Mercury is the Red King. I could be wrong about this part. And sulfur is the White Queen. It could be the other way around. But so because those two together produce a salt, which is mercury sulfide, which was known as cinnabar to ancient people. It was something that was mined. It was a salt that was mined, and then they extracted mercury from that thing there, from that salt. So mercury, sulfur, and salt are considered the tria prima of alchemy. The three, they're like the holy trinity of alchemy. But they are the Red King and the White Queen, right? So, but the Wars of the Roses wasn't called the Wars of the Roses at the time it happened. That was added later, and apparently so were the roses, because the Lancaster rose was red, and the York rose was white, and they were depicted as opposites. So they were both depicted as 5 petal roses, but the Lancaster rose was like this, and the York rose was like this. So they are opposites, right? The Red King and the White Queen. One is masculine, and one is feminine, right? And the Wars of the Roses ended when the Tudor married Elizabeth of York, and when that happened, they combined the two roses together to make the House of Tudor. So the Tudor dynasty begins with the marriage of those two, and that is the emblem of House Tudor, is the white rose embedded in the red rose, which is the symbol of the union of opposites. And I thought, this is supposed to be an actual historical thing here, and yet it seems to have been told within kind of the context of alchemy, so that it fits kind of this alchemical picture, right? Because what is the union of opposites in alchemy? It's like the kind of what you might call the birth of, like enlightened individual, right? Uh, so in alchemy, this transformation goes in 7 stages. And in Game of Thrones, you have the 7 kingdoms, the religion of the seven heavens, very much like alchemy. And I'm like, what is the connection? Is there a connection? Uh, is this? And then I had to, now I'm like reading Shakespeare's plays, which are about the Wars of the Roses, which is Henry the Sixth. There were 2 parts of Henry the Sixth, I believe. There's like Henry the Sixth Part One, Henry the Sixth Part Two, and then there's another one, and then I think that ends with Richard the Third, something like that. But that is his Shakespeare's version of the Wars of the Roses, and of course, looking into Shakespeare, I see similar symbolism there too. So like, and of course I had to read Shakespeare's Venus and Adonis, because Venus and Adonis are from ancient times, from even before the Greeks. Uh, the couple in the sacred marriage, they are essentially the Red King and the White Queen of alchemy. The sacred marriage was a ritual that took place in ancient Babylon and ancient Sumer. It was associated with the fertility of the land. This is what all the whenever you read about the sacred marriage rites, it's always associated with the fertility of the land. Because Adonis was in Sumer called Tammuz. Sorry, he was called Dumuzi in Sumer, and Tammuz by the Babylonians. And he was the god who went into the underworld. And when he was in the underworld, it was wintertime. And when he came out of the underworld and returned to his lover, who was the Greeks called Aphrodite, the Babylonians called Ishtar, when he was with her, it was summer again. So this is the sacred marriage. And of course, what is Game of Thrones? What is one of the main themes of Game of Thrones? Is the changing of the seasons. So, now I'm reading 1,000 different things. Shakespeare's Venus and Adonis, Shakespeare's plays about the Henry the Tudor. I don't know how many alchemical texts, but my writing just stopped. Like, but I'm like, I can still write I still have to do research, but I can still write, right? I can still do whatever, but I shouldn't say whatever, but I still have ideas that I can put into words. But for whatever reason, I feel the need to get drunk when I do it, and so this is what happens: is I'll tell myself, just go get some beer and then sit down and write out a few articles, or go get some cough syrup and sit down and write out a few articles, or both, get some cough syrup and some beer, and what happens? About 5 minutes after I start drinking, I get onto YouTube and I start watching videos, and it's usually like reaction videos, like people reacting to Metallica or Alice in Chains, or something like that. Some of them I've already seen 100 times. I almost watched Bloodsport again last night for like the 1,000th time. Bloodsport was a movie I watched when I was a kid. When I was back when I was like 16 years old. I watched Bloodsport, like, you know, Bloodsport, Star Wars, Top Gun. I watched these over and over and over. Of course, that was because that was the only movies I had. back when we had VHS tapes. But for whatever reason, if I start drinking, I feel the need to watch it again. And I haven't, I've hardly written anything in the last month. And I suspect that there's a part of me that realizes that this project could be like the biggest thing I've ever done, right? Like if I were ever going to be known, you know, this would be it. And I think there's a part of me that when I see those actors doing the interviews and that sort of thing, I'm not going to say that I don't want to be famous, but I think there's a part of me that just is like, no, I'm supposed to be a loser. I'm supposed to be. I have this kind of almost like it seems almost like a self-destructive kind of sort of thing. And like just today, when my headache was at its worst, I remember thinking that I should just go back to my father's business and just demand him give me a job. And it kind of felt like the right thing to do, but it also felt like I'm basically just giving up on life if I do that. There's a part of me that feels like I should be there working for him. Uh, but there's also another part of me that feels like I should be out living my life somewhere. I shouldn't be stuck here in where I'm at and living in a bus, you know. Watching these actors do their interviews, I kind of felt like I'm not gonna say that I should be an actor, but I just had this kind of feeling of I just never I never really left home almost. Like I was a bird that just never left the nest. I never tried to fly. Maybe that's what I should title this video. I never tried to fly. When I started this, I wasn't even sure what I was going to talk about. Now that I've revealed my secrets about my Game of Thrones analysis, that's not the whole of the analysis, of course, but oh yeah, Venus and Adonis, Shakespeare's play is full of red and white together. I didn't count the number of instances, but if you're curious, you can read Shakespeare's Venus and Adonis and count how many times the words crimson, red, blood, uh, are coupled with white, pale, ivory, milk. So yeah, I have a lot of research to do. I don't like that angle. I look like a I look I look more like a girl from that angle, but I also look kind of I don't know bad light maybe. A woman told me once we were talking about me being trans. She was, of course, on the side of me not being trans, and she told me that I never tried to be a man. She's like, you never really tried. And I thought, well, you're right. To some degree. I did try to be a man. Just not very hard. But I would say it's more accurate to say that I never really tried to live my life. I kind of lived life in my head. If I had recorded every lecture I imagined myself giving, I might be like some YouTube guru already. Though I can't, that's not really saying much about the imaginary lectures that I've given because they're not all that great. But I'd probably have 1,000 lectures on YouTube already if I had recorded kind of all these just things I imagined myself saying to people. So is that my stopping point? I just noticed that the record button on my camera is white and red. It's a white square inside a red circle. It's a fucking sign. It is a goddamn sign. It's the eye of God looking straight at me. The eye of God is looking straight at me. It's bearing into my soul like a fucking drill. Boring into my soul. Boring. That's where the word boring comes from. Do you know that? When people say this is boring, the word literally, the literal meaning of that is that to drill, right? This is like boring a hole. Apparently, a long time ago, drilling a hole was something that was very dull and not exciting to do. Probably took a long time. So that's why we say this is boring. So I also learned last night that the word Babylon. Apparently, Babylon was the Greek version of what the Babylonians called their own city. They didn't call it Babylon. They called it Babili or Babilu or something like that. I was talking to ChatGPT about it. I didn't get a straight answer. I had to coerce ChatGPT into giving me an answer. But Babilu or whatever, however you say it, was the same as the Babel in the Bible, Babel. Of course, if you know anything about Hebrew, you know that El is the name for God, or a word for God. I'll put it that way. So El was also a word for God in the Semitic culture. So Babylonians were a Semitic culture. The Ugaritic people were a Semitic culture. The Phoenicians were a Semitic culture, and all of them have a deity named Il, I-L. That's how it's usually spelled. So it's I-L and E-L, right? And of course, when you see Babylon, it's usually spelled with a Y. But that Y-L in Babylon is basically a word for God. So the question then is, what does the Bab mean? Bab means gate. So apparently the word Babylon means the gate of God, or the gate to God, or the gate from God. I'm not sure. But it's just God, or gate God is what the two words mean. Which is similar to the names of other cities. There was a city in Egypt, I forget what the word was, the name was, but it translated to the gate of the Duat, which means the gate to the underworld. It was the name of the city. So, I thought that was interesting. But this is my life at the moment. Finding out what words mean, finding out what colors mean. Maybe my Game of Thrones project will be the thing that takes me out into the bright center of the universe. Because right now I'm on the planet that it is farthest from. Ain't that right, Luke Skywalker? I did watch a decent movie last night. It was cute. Called Gods and Monsters. But a film director, this is one of the reasons why I'm on this subject of film. Uh, the film director who made the Frankenstein movies back when people did black and white movies. Uh, the classic Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein. I believe there was another one, but it was about his fling, if you can call it that. It wasn't really a fling in the sense of having sex. They didn't have sex. It was an erotic tension. What it was between this film director and his lawn boy, the guy who mowed his grass, and the film director was played by Ian McKellen, who was Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings, and Magneto in the X-Men movies. I'm sure he's played other things too. And Brendan Fraser, who I have often suspected is gay. Brendan plays a confused and reluctant companion. Confused because he knows once he finds out that the director is gay, he gets first he's offended, but then he comes back and he's kind of like, you know, I think I want to get a taste of this, but I'm not sure. So maybe I should put on a show right now, a homoerotic show. I can't show my nipples anymore because I got boobs now. If I were to show you my nipples, I'd be banned. They'd say that's X-rated. I'd say, but I'm a man. Just because I got the fat. Just because I got the fat doesn't mean I can't show my nipples anymore, does it? I suppose it does. I kind of want to do a homoerotic scene with somebody. I don't know if I was an actor how I would feel about doing erotic scenes. Especially if I wouldn't say especially if I had to do it with a woman. But I think there would be a little bit of awkwardness, at least at this point in my life. Because I think if I were to kiss a woman, especially if she was attractive, like even just acting, I think there's a part of me that would be like, did she like it? Did she want more? I wondered about that when I was watching the interview with Armie Hammer, and I can't. Every time I say that Armie Hammer, I think of Arm and Hammer, baking soda. Armie Hammer, I don't know why his parents named him that, but Army. Who names their kid Army? Maybe that's a nickname. I don't know, but I wondered if either one of them got an erection. Of course, I imagine Armie Hammer having the erection because I figured that Chalamet is the bottom. But did I lose you? Have I lost you at this point? I'm just rambling, just ranting. Where's one of these lectures? Should I give you one of these lectures, or should I just stop the video and start over and do one of these lectures? My head feels better. My head feels much better. I'm sure if I stop recording, I'll go back to having a headache. I'll go back to thinking about stuff. Let's go back to living my life in my head. there's still that part of me that says, just go to your dad's shop and demand a job. Like, give me a fucking job. I have a job. Because there is also that part of me that just feels like this analysis that I'm working on is, I'm never going to finish it. I wasn't made to do this sort of thing. I wasn't made to be a movie actor. I wasn't made to be or even a film director or a script writer, or I wasn't made for looking at lighting every time I hold a fucking camera, and composition, and which is the best angle. I wasn't made for that stuff. I wasn't made for it. Where's the flower in this screen? Where is it better? It's better over here. It's better right there. That's the sweet spot right there. I wasn't made for that stuff. Am I saying that I belong in the movies? Is that what I'm saying? I did just make a video where I said I wanted to be an actor. And in that one I was drunk, so I might have been more honest. How about this angle? You may not know it, but half the time I'm talking to you in videos, I'm scratching my nuts. If I become a movie star, I have to do something about my teeth, don't I? My receding gum line and my crooked buck teeth. Or will that be my defining mark? That'll be the thing that makes me stand out. Surely there's a movie script somewhere that calls for a character with a receding gum line and crooked buck teeth. There aren't enough characters like that in movies. That's what the world needs right now. It's more characters with bad teeth. Do I look pretty? Do I look like a bottom? Am I a bottom to life? Life just fucks me in the ass constantly because I can't be bothered to get up and take control of my life. I can't leave the nest. I can't leave the nest. It's impossible. It's impossible. Here comes my acting skills again. I can't leave the nest. I can't do it. The world is too torturous. The world is a rough and torturous place. I might as well just scrape my face against sandpaper. I might as well just take my heart out of my chest and grind it against the rough asphalt of the road on a hot day. How's that? Was that? How was that? Should I try it again? Should I try it again? Sweet is life, but not for me. My heart is too sour. Yeah. Nah. I think I'm done. Because I'm thinking, really, I'm just afraid of you leaving. I think I'm just afraid of you saying goodbye and saying, I'm sick of this fucking video. So it's time for me to stop. Because if I stop, you'll say that was just the right length. I think I'll watch another video. As long as you're not wasting my fucking time. Were you wasting my time? You wasted my time this whole entire video. Did I? I didn't waste your time, did I? I like this angle. I like the way my hair is laying down. Usually my hair is like this. But when it lays down, I feel sexy. See? 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 Can I talk like a woman? That's for another video, I think. Can I talk like a woman? That's another video. 40 minutes and 59 seconds. I think this one's going to be about movies. And yeah, so while I'm here, Gods and Monsters was the name of the movie. And if you like homoerotic movies about famous creative people, Little Ashes is a movie about the painter Salvador Dali and his erotic episode with the Spanish poet Federico Garcia Lorca. That stars Robert Pattinson as Salvador Dali. Robert Pattinson is the guy from Twilight, and he recently played Batman in the most recent Batman movie. I don't know the guy who plays Federico. That was decent. And then there's Total Eclipse, which is a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio as Arthur Rimbaud. I don't know how to say that French name. It's spelled Rimbaud, which in English we might look at it and say it's Rimbaud. But apparently in French it's Rimbaud. Something like that. And so Leonardo DiCaprio plays him, and then David Thewlis plays Paul Verlaine, his lover. Those are two homoerotic movies that are decent. All three of those movies they come across as low budget. They're not like exquisitely produced. They do tend to have some really nice looking scenes in the sense of just the way they're composed, shot, and that sort of thing. But of those three, I couldn't pick one to recommend. I don't know which one I would pick if I had to pick one. It's been so long since I've seen Total Eclipse. I can barely remember what that one was even like. All right, toodles.